You know what Ben Franklin is? Ben Franklin is Yoda.
Do you think that's who they like made? Like they're like, this is our inspiration, his face and everything. Do you think they gave him glasses and then they took the glasses off because they're like, that's too on the nose?
I think Ben Franklin didn't wear a wig because it couldn't fit over his Yoda ears.
You just had that weird like shaggy thing going on.
He just taped his ears down, his Yoda ears down. Hi, this is Reckless Greatest. We are totally starting the podcast with Ben Franklin being Yoda.
Yeah.
Just saying, I'm not cutting that out.
Yeah.
Well, I want to just say why we said that about Ben Franklin was because pre-hitting the record button, I was talking to Sadie about my 15-minute sprint. I don't want to use the word failure because, as we learned in our first episode, spooning failure.
Yeah. You're a work in progress. You're working on it.
I'm working on it. But okay, so I'm doing this crazy thing. I've got to move a bunch of stuff. So I can't like sit in front of my laptop all the time when I'm not working. So here's a tip. 50-minute sprint or whatever you're doing. And if you are in a period of your life when things are kind of crazy and you have to be on the go a lot and you can't like sit still to read a book or do research or write or whatever. I was trying to figure out a way to get my head in the world of the book that I'm writing, which happens to be historical narrative fiction, sort of historical biography, whatever. So I found a podcast in that time period. It happened to be a Thomas Jefferson podcast called The Jefferson Hour, which is really cool. The dude who hosts the podcast has been on like, I think 4 Ken Burns documentaries. So he knows his stuff. He's a good historian. So anyway, so if find some sort of podcast that has that's in that sort of world that your book is in or your script is in or whatever you're working on. And listen to it while you're doing other stuff so that it kind of gets your head going, a little ideas. So what I did, because I have a really crappy memory, really bad, I brought a little notebook with me because I think I've told you guys I have notebooks for every little project, right? Mm-hmm. So I brought my little notebook with me so that I could, I'm shutting off my Slack. I brought my notebook with me so that I could jot down something if I heard something that was a good idea. So listen to those a podcast or something like that that helps you get in that world, because then your mind is going to keep thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And everybody learns different ways. Some people learn by listening, some people learn by reading, writing, whatever. So that's my tip for the busy person who is struggling with just finding 15 minutes.
It is hard. It is hard. There's no way around it. Didn't say it was easy. But I think that's a great advice. Yeah. Because you'll think about it. You'll dream about it. When you take a shower, you'll think about it. Yeah.
That's shower? Awesome. Is showering?
I mean, I know that's optional for us, but
theoretically.
Well, before we dive into talking about who we interviewed for this episode, I did, in spirit of the interview, I did find some fun quotes for our quote game. And drinking is optional for you, Jeannie. I don't know if you refilled your perfume bottle, but that's fine.
Damn.
The filmmaker we interviewed, his background is working on a farm, working with big machinery and loving the soil and all that. So we were joking, I think last night, about cows and stuff. So So
Are we going cow tipping? Field trip?
No. So I have some
For those who can't, for those who can't see us, Sadie was saying no, but she was nodding yes. Okay, go.
That's not true. Yes, I found some fun quotes, and then you can let me know if it was Fran or Larry. So the first one.
Brandon Larry talked about cow tipping?
Well, not
okay, let's
cow
go.
tipping, but cows or whatever. All right, here's the first one. My favorite animal is steak.
Fran.
Yeah. You did it.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. All right.
I'll take a sip of water.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
My cow is not pretty, but it is pretty to me.
Neither of them?
Actually, you're right. It's a different David, but his first name is David, and it's a filmmaker. It's David Lynch.
Oh, wow. See, you are really trying to trick me. You lied to me, Sadie D.
Well, you're catching on. That's fine.
I guess. Holy moly. Good thing I did. I was going to say good thing I had my Wheaties this morning, but I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I don't eat Wheaties.
In spirit of the Olympics, is that why? Don't like Olympic winners usually like get on the front?
Yeah, they did. Caitlyn Jenner, when she was Bruce Jenner, was on the Wheaties box. I remember when I was a kid. I remember we had that Wheaties box. But I used to eat Total cereal as a kid.
Interesting.
Is that, do they still make that?
I don't know. I don't really.
It was kind of like Wheaties, but with more vitamins, I think. I don't know why I was a healthy little girl, but I know, what's this vitamin thing?
All right. I have another one. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, this one doesn't have anything to do with cows, but I think it kind of speaks to what this episode is. So I thought it was fun. I'm not a person who embraces challenges. I run from challenges. I break world records running from challenges.
That has to be Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. He seems like he would just see a challenge and say, I'm out of here.
Anyways, I feel like that goes into what we spoke about with Skyler and about him shooting on film and shooting back home and just going for it, which is a huge challenge. And he didn't get in his way. He just went for it, which I think is admirable. I've been having that battle with myself this past week of, I want to make this film, the short film in the fall. And I'm like, thinking of every excuse in the book of why I can't do it or I shouldn't do it. And they're just excuses. So I have to embrace this challenge and just do it.
I think you need to now say, what would Ben Franklin do?
What would Yoda Franklin do?
Yoda Franklin do? Dude really was like Yoda, man.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time learning a lot about, like, going back and either learning stuff I wasn't taught or learning stuff I don't remember that I was taught. So that's kind of also fun about the project.
Yeah.
Skyler Lawson is our guest today, and he filmed this. He wrote and directed and edited and did the lighting and as I was listening to him, he did so much. But I want to just give a little, because we didn't talk about like what the log line of the movie was before he launched into the whole backstory of how he got it done.
Mm-hmm.
2 years of his life, including quitting his job. And I mean, pretty remarkable story. The film is called Whelm, Whelm, and according to IMDb, the log line is set during the Great Depression. Two Midwest brothers get tangled in a rivalry between a legendary bank robber and an eccentric young criminal. So he's, I will not spoil the story because he's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
And but it was a big challenge there.
Yeah. And it's
a period piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that dude's reckless.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just like you're sitting there saying, okay, also, let's just say this. You're sitting there saying, how am I going to do this short film? Am I going to do this? What would Skyler do? Skyler would say to you, look, Sadie Dean.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to call you something, but I don't think Skyler would. He's a good Indiana
He's
guy.
really nice. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice. He would never call a woman a name. He's much nicer than I am. But anyway, he would tell you to go do it. Like, get it done, girl.
Yeah. There's no reason.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
No reason.
No reason.
So Skyler has inspired us. So now let us have him inspire you.
And cut.
Cool.
So on Reckless Creatives today, we've got Skyler Lawson. It is not just me and Sadie droning on and on about random weird stuff. We actually have a focus today, which is fun. So welcome, Skyler.
Thank you for having me.
We are thrilled. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, you've got quite a history in the artist department. Quite the multi-hyphenate over here.
He's done all of it.
Yeah, making me feel a little bit like a slacker. First of all, Skyler, our brand is drinking tequila while we podcast. So
love it.
That is drinking tequila while we podcast.
I prefer drinking tequila almost anytime I'm doing anything. So we'll fit right in.
Great.
Except my bottle's empty right now. So we're gonna.
This is not tequila. This is water. But we'll act like it isn't, so I can fit in.
Awesome. So Sadie is the filmmaker of the two of us and the musician. You can see her little guitar hanging in the back there.
I see the gear.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Whelm and this cool thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so Whelm is my debut feature film, which is a huge deal for me because I've been working towards it for a long time. And I did short films for years, did 4 of them that would add up to what a feature would be, and just testing out different technique and finding what my voice would be cinematically. And I think that was a smart way to go through my own film school doing it, because I went to art school. I didn't go to film school. So just getting my hands dirty and going for it with short films set me up to be able to make a feature. And the thing about it is you don't know how to make a feature until you do it either. No one really tells you. It's a very insulated industry, unfortunately, which isn't all bad, because that means that there's no rules, because no one tells you the rules. So you're doing it however you can, any way you can get it done. And I tried to get another feature off the ground for a few years, two years, and didn't know it at the time, but I was asking for too much money. And I knew I had done great work with the short films, but that didn't necessarily mean anything when you're asking for $1 million. That it's not viable. But no one tells you that starting out. You think that that's what it costs. You think that a feature film, oh well, the lowest we can go is somewhere around there. And I just have a knack for some reason, and producers beware. I have a knack for writing big things, and so they cost they cost money, but it didn't get off the ground for a reason. And I'm excited that it didn't get made, because it forced me to figure something else out. And I realized that I was going to make a feature no matter what. And I didn't necessarily need to have permission to do it. So I just, made a list of things I had access to. I used my hometown and what was available there. The cast members that were in my short films, which I knew were world class, they had, studied in New York at HB Studios with some legendary teachers like Austin Pendleton, and they have a very storied history. It's where De Niro studied, and Pacino, and their pedigree is amazing, and their talent's amazing, and they aren't household names, but I knew that they could be if we did our job. And so I just made a list of everything I had access to, and those actors, and just tried to put that puzzle together and reverse engineer what I could get done. If no one handed me $1, could I make this movie? And that is quite a puzzle to solve. But what came out the other side was, weirdly enough, I can make a Depression era film, that had a sizable cast of like six to 10 actors, but we're focused very closely on just a handful of them. And the name of the game is getting the most for your money, and put all the money on screen. That was what I wanted to do. And so at that time, there was no money other than my own bank account and credit cards. And my wife is extremely supportive of that, and I'll always be grateful. But it's scary. I quit my job. I worked at an ad firm for a long time doing commercials, and I quit my job to make features. And so I was gonna do it and was gonna make it happen. And so we proceeded as if I had the money. So I started getting the team together, all the people that I'd worked with over the years. I started shooting on film a couple years before that, and just shooting on celluloid automatically, in my mind, it sets you apart a little bit. And if the name of the game is to be different, then I was going to do everything I could to stand out amongst the noise. There's so much content out there. And so film was the first step. I knew I was going to shoot it on film no matter what, because the movies we grew up watching, they're all shot on film. There's a certain magic that comes with celluloid, and yeah, it's the format is not the thing. Story is the thing. But those were my rules. I was going to shoot it on film, and I was going to use the assets I had, which is my hometown, which still has some architecture from the 30s and wide open fields, because I grew up on a grain farm, and massive skies, and I knew that was cinematic. And those three things were going to be super cinematic. And so those were my rules. So I sat down and wrote a script with those things in mind, and gave it to all my collaborators. They all got on board before there was any money at all. And we just proceeded as if it was going to happen. And I told everyone it was going to happen. I was at a film festival with my last short I did, which is a World War II short that was at Holly Shorts. I told everyone there that I was making a feature, and wish me luck. So kind of put myself in the hot seat and made promises to people that I had to keep it. So, and gained some great collaborators out of that. I found my DP, one of my best friends ever, Ed Herrera, there, and we decided to work together. And so the thing was just pushing forward. The train's already moving. It's easier to get people to jump on a moving train than a train that's at a halt, that hasn't even gained any steam and doesn't even have fuel in it. So I just controlled what I could control and move forward. We just looked for the money as I, wrote it, and as I started producing it. I decided it was the best idea for me to produce the movie myself, which was kind of a scary thing to do. But it was my hometown, and I couldn't have a foreign, face, someone that little town didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how many people are in your town?
That's a great question.
Do you know?
It's like a 4 factory town. You know what I mean? Kind of a Rust Belt town in Indiana. I don't know the number, but it's not huge. It's one Walmart. No.
Well, that's more than my town has.
Well, I love it. I love it.
We have one traffic light here.
Yeah, we have a little bit more than that, but it's still a small town, good community, and so I wanted to make sure that that I was the person that the town would be dealing with, because I knew I was going to have to involve them in a big way if I was shooting there, and so I kind of got the pieces together and just was not finding the money once again, which is a massive hurdle. But I went to art school to become a designer, and I learned how to pitch. So I started pitching everywhere. And in the end, the best thing about that is that I had to double down on what I said. I was going to make the movie even if there was no money. So I started getting costumes on eBay, started doing all kinds of stuff, bought plane tickets for everyone. Everyone's coming, and have the backup that we're going to shoot on digital if I don't find the money, but alert Kodak that I'm ready to go and have the stock ready. And I went and met the mayor of my small town and just told him what I wanted to do. And he directed me. He said, you should put like a call out in the newspaper, see what people, are how they're willing to help. And we got a bunch of old cars out of that. Locations, I went and met with one of the main locations, an old hotel that is refurbished to the era in that town, wrote that into the script. The main downtown, I knew I had to shut down a street for at least one big scene in downtown. And I just wanted him to alert him about it and see if it was something he'd be interested in helping with. And from that ad in the paper, outpouring of support. We ended up, all of our meals were secured from like churches and clubs and groups. So the catering was taken care of. They were willing to donate that. I'll put everyone in the credits. It's your movie, feature Walt West, Indiana. It's your movie, not just mine. And we started with that. So that actually, if you look at it, is raising the funds for the movie. That's money. And it stinks that you have to talk about money so much in making movies, because it's such a pure art form when you're actually doing it. But as a filmmaker, you're spending most of your time not making movies. You're getting ready to make them. So, and as I was leaving the mayor's office, he said, anything you need, you let me know. And I said, actually, I hate to ask this, but I need money. I need a very specific amount. And he said, okay, well, let me poke around. And I got a phone call from someone that was willing to work with me and wanted to know what I was doing. And the movie involves a local legend of Indiana, a criminal that's very famous that used to hang out and hide out in my hometown. So there was some, local grab there, and I had dinner with some people who were interested in giving the money, not giving the money, but investing in the film. And so the best part about that was they agreed to work because they said, we know your family. Our families have worked together for almost 100 years. My grandpa worked with your grandpa, and so since it's a farm family. And so what I love about that is when I decided to own my roots and go home to make the movie and do it in their front yard, that's when all the doors opened. I didn't have to go to Hollywood to make it happen. It was where we were.
And there's something about like a small town coming together to create a movie like this, like in my little town, they filmed Woodstock, and everyone would go to the theater. Like, what was it? Have you shown the film to the locals yet? Like a cut of it to them yet?
It's coming. It's
coming.
Yeah, it's coming to my hometown very, very soon. There's a 100-year-old theater there that they were renovating at the time when we were filming, and now it's finished. And COVID kind of had them shut down for a little bit, but I think I might be one of the first movies to ever play there, which I saw all my childhood. All the movies growing up I saw there. So I mean, it literally looks like a theater where like Abraham Lincoln would go. It's like a vaudeville theater that they turned into a movie theater. It's very
Does it have like one of those old balconies still, and the red velvet curtains?
2 balconies
and sweet
everything wrapped in red velvet. That's my favorite.
That's sweet.
So making the movie was an extreme joy, because the money came together and literally secured the money. My crew was showing up on location. We still didn't have the money, and we were shooting in like 2 days, and the cast was showing up from New York, and we finally got it, and I put the order in for all the film, all the cameras, everything, and was very grateful to be working with companies like Airy Rental and Kodak. They're very supportive, and they rushed things through and sent things out in the middle of nowhere so we could make our movie. And it was amazing because I was able to do what I love, and the people that I love were around to see it happen. You know, some of my family's in the movie if you look close. And when we shot a really big set piece in the movie, I put it in the paper that people were welcome to come watch, and they could stand behind the barricades off camera and watch it happen, because not every day you see a movie shot in your town. And to be honest, I mean, we were shooting on film. We were doing, I mean, these are high end, situation for that small town, and they aren't exposed to that kind of thing very often. It's just on TV. So it was amazing to let them come see what I was doing, as if it was like a football game, and welcome that. And people were very respectful. And as we walked away from making that movie, and also people's family heirlooms were in the movie. These old cars, people love them like their family members, and they were lending them to us, and I was letting them drive them. We would dress the owners of the movies up, and they get to be in the movie. So it's like, cool. That's a different way of looking at movie making. I mean, seriously, because it fills your heart. Everybody is involved, and they feel like they're a part of it. And yeah, I'm stressed out to the max because I'm directing and producing and getting all this together and making sure everyone's fed, but it was worth it. It was worth it. And the cast walk away from it at the end, the crew who don't get to go out into the open fields. I mean, we were out in the middle of nowhere, open air, and they're like, this is one of the best, not just film sets, but one of the best couple weeks of my life. We shot the whole movie in 14 days, which is tough.
Wow.
So it was like a summer camp atmosphere. It was very, very tough, very challenging to keep it on the rails, but we had the help of that small town and family and people just pitching in, and it ended up being amazing. So it was incredible. And we premiered the movie at the Heartland Film Festival in Indiana. So we gave them an opportunity to see it, but I can't wait to bring the actual theatrical, everything's
to the
finished,
little town.
to them and see it. It's coming very, very soon, very soon.
I think it's like it's also a great lesson in, not taking no for an answer, and just pushing through an indie filmmaking. I mean, were there young people who came up to you that you felt like maybe they were inspired by what you were doing, that maybe in their little town they never imagined being filmmakers, and now they saw you like come into town and kind of swirl it all up?
Well, I definitely knew that if that would happen when I was young, I would be inspired by it. I knew for a fact, if anything like that was even close to me, if someone was shooting a movie, I would be right there to see. The best part about it was I did some local casting too, so extras in the film. I mean, the movie is full of Indiana faces, which you just can't find anywhere, and some of them were young and aspire to be actors and actresses, and it was good to let them just be exposed to the process, because it's not what you think it is. Once you get behind the veil, it's much more blue collar, which they can relate, a small town can relate to. I grew up on a farm, and there's a lot of hard work, and you just got to trust that things are gonna, the plants are gonna come out of the ground. Filmmaking is the same. A lot of effort goes into putting the seeds in the ground, and you just hope that the ingredients that you put together are gonna mesh, and the team you put together, they're gonna get along well, and the product's gonna be worth, someone leaving their house to go see. And so I think they related to that, like, oh, it's a very serious when it's serious, and performances are much more potent when you're there in real life. But at the same time, once you say cut, they see me, high-fiving and hugging my best friends. And I think that demystifies it for some kid who thinks, man, I want to make movies, but Hollywood seems awful far away when you're in Indiana. but I was making it right there. So there was a few, and people were reaching out like they wanted to help. And like on the big day, I needed people to not stop traffic because we actually had, the Department of Transportation doing that. But to like hold off people from walking in the alleys that would be in sight lines of the camera, and it lets them just be a part of it. So yeah, I love that we were able to do that front row for hopefully the next big director was there and I didn't get to meet him. I hope that happens, or her. I know a few people expressed interest after it was over that they can't wait to see it, and am I in it? And then they would show up in the trailer and be like, oh my gosh, there I am.
Did I make the cut?
Yeah. And I love that. And we're taking the movies coming out on digital and Blu-ray and everything on August 3rd through Gravitas Ventures in North America. And it'll be amazing for them to buy it and look I Spy, the things they grew up around. Because I mean, we were shooting on some major lenses and on film. And so I guarantee they haven't seen their hometown like that ever. It's never been showcased like that. So it'll be amazing for them to have the chance, and then hopefully on the big screen too, which I know will happen very soon. But the best part about it is that literally my parents' backyard and the fields that I grew up, riding in the tractor in are featured in like some major scenes in the movie. And so it's like my home, it's like a home movie basically, is going to be, shown on 35 millimeter, in Beverly Hills, because we're starting a 35 millimeter roadshow with it and taking it on the road theatrically. I mean, that's amazing to show my movie in a high profile place like that. But it's more than that. It's my home. And it's my parents who think, who they're in a small town and, they would never imagine that their property that they work so hard to keep, in the family would make it to the big screen in Hollywood. That's amazing. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome to talk about the film itself and shooting on film, because people don't do that anymore because it's not readily available. And definitely limits you on how many takes you can do. I'm just like curious, like how did you have like a set amount of takes that you knew you could do with the amount of feet you had in the role? Did you have like your script supervisor like counting down every time you take a take? And they're like, okay, that was a minute. You got 90 feet left.
Right.
Let's not screw this up. Make sure
shooting on film it's scary until you do it.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of you hear Chris Nolan talking about it and he's like untouchable. It's like hard to, he wants film to stay alive and very much was a huge part in saving it. We almost didn't have celluloid for a second. And that would be that would be like taking oil paints away. Like, oh, that'd be terrible. But you hear him talking about it. It's like, well, he's the biggest of big. Of course he shoots on film. Once I decided that I was shooting on it long ago, it was like, oh, I spent a lot of time making my digital look like film. Why don't I just shoot on it and see what happens? And I fell in love with it. And the thing about it is that when you are shooting on film, it is a little bit more expensive when you're starting. You have to buy the film. You got to have people around who know what they're doing. Load the camera up. I mean, there's literally money running through the camera. But in the end, the product just feels superior to me. That's my taste. People can shoot on digital. That's fine. It's just my taste. And if I was going to spend that much time and literally, you make a movie, it's 2 years of your life. I'm going to spend 2 years of my life on something. I want it to be showcased in the best quality it can be. So film was for me. But the best thing I think about film, other than the way it looks and feels, is when there's a film camera on set, and it might sound cliche, but everyone brings their A game like right away. Right away. They don't want to be the one that messes up. But when we're shooting in 14 days, very high stress, like twice as many scenes as what a normal movie would be shooting because it's a tight schedule. I didn't have a script supervisor. I couldn't pay them. So I was just doing it myself and going for it. You can't worry about the film that's running through the camera. What's important is the performance. And so sometimes we got it in one take. We're in there, we're out. We're in, we're out. I mean, these actors were trained on stage. So they're used to one take. And sometimes we do it one take, sometimes we would do 7 takes. I mean, there's a scene in the movie that's over 9 minutes long, and it's never cuts. So we did that over 7 times to get it right. Just had to be willing to, if it doesn't matter how expensive it is, if it's not good, it can't go in the movie. And on set, you have to I have to break my brain to not take my producer hat off when it's time to direct, and just watch the performance. And when it's true, it's true. Mark it. Okay, good. Moving on. If it's not, you got to keep going, and don't worry about how much it's costing. But all that being said, you're very right. We had a limited amount of film, and we had to order more in the very early on, because we realized we were doing more takes. And we shoot it on 16 millimeter, which is a little more cost effective, and also luckily fits the Dust Bowl and Depression era very well. But money will always be a factor. If it isn't on set, then it's going to be later, and color grading and things like that. It's just a personal taste. It was a big risk for me to shoot on film, honestly. Is it a responsible one? I thought so, because I knew that the product was going to have a built-in exclusivity for my investors. They knew I was for real. They knew that I was willing. If I'm willing to quote unquote risk their money on shooting on film, then the story must be good. And so I think that it elevates, shooting on film elevates the team. It elevates my game. It makes me more attentive. So yeah, we had a limited amount of takes, but in the end, it wasn't any different than if I was shooting on digital. You just ride the wave of what's happening. You have to be involved in the now rather than worrying about what's going to happen later, and you just deal with it.
Yeah. Did you do any test shooting prior to that? Have you shot in film for short films, or did you go out with your DP and do some test rolls?
Yeah, I had shot on film for the 2 short films that were before that. Okay. But I was working with a DP that I had never worked with on this feature, but I had seen his work at Holly Shorts. Ed Herrera, I mean, he's literally one of the best cinematographers around now, period. And he's in his 30s, young 30s. And I saw his work, knew immediately that he was worth his salt. And yeah, I was just very impressed with his work anyway. And we got along so well, and we saw things the same way. We loved the same movies. We could speak non-verbally almost. You just reference a movie you love, and we're off, and he's not mimicking that movie, but he knows what I'm saying. If I say Assassination of Jesse James, he knows what that means, and he's going. So film also makes you trust your collaborators, which is amazing. And I didn't use a monitor almost ever, which was a weird choice, but I liked being front seat. It makes the actors feel like I'm trusting them and I'm there for them, but also it makes Ed and my Steadicam operator, Greg Arch, it makes me trust them, and it lets them know that I trust that they're making the right call. And at the same time, money's running through the camera, don't mess it up. And so it makes you have extreme trust. It just heightens the stakes a little bit, which everyone's different. Sometimes super high stakes might inflict panic, but for me, I think I strive in it. So I knew setting myself up in a high pressure scenario was the right way to go. And my collaborators, they really loved the pressure too, in a weird way. It just added an energy of immediacy, which you're going for on a film set anyway. Everyone just be there in the moment. And yeah.
That's the way to do it. And it's you're not watching dailies either, because you're shooting on film, so you have no monitor, no dailies.
We did have a monitor. I would check the frame before we would start, but while we were going, I wasn't watching it. So and I would just turn. It was I would turn to Ed, who was shooting it. I would turn to my focus puller, and First AC, who was loading the film into the camera as well, Nicole Lehrman. She's amazing. And I would look at both of them, and I would either get a nod yes or a nod no. Did you get it? Yep, I got it. All right.
move
And
on.
they did. Everything's in focus and everything, you know, is perfect. And so, and then they would be honest with me if like, since I was putting so much, you know, a little bit of unspoken pressure on them, if they didn't get it, they would tell me. They wouldn't let it slip. So it's just a great way. I feel like it just brings out the best of everyone if your team's assembled right. And so, yeah, I love it. I love it.
Is there anything now that you've done your first feature, like, are there things that you learned by doing this that you want to apply to your next one?
Definitely. 1,000,000%. You don't know what to expect until you do it. In a short film, you're doing it in like 2 days, 3 days at most, from my experience. And this was 14 days with 1 day off in the middle. Anybody knows, like, if you played sports or been to summer camp, there's a certain breaking point when people just don't get along for a day. Everyone's just tired of each other, and it's a pressure cooker. We were all living in a farmhouse together. I made it that way. No one was in hotels. So it was a full-on summer camp feeling. We were eating together every meal. And, you know, we're all cleaning the house. It's like you have responsibilities, but it was more like summer camp sometimes than it was a film set. And people who weren't shooting would just be relaxing or helping carry light stands. I mean, we'd made the movie literally with a cinematographer, a first AC who was pulling focus and was loading the camera up, a second AC who, you know, was clapping and doing the camera reports. Me, I had a first AD who was just keeping me on schedule, and the actors, one grip, and one gaffer. Whole movie done with, and a sound, and obviously sound. And that is a pretty small crew, but we could load up in the cars and head out. You know, we were in there and out. And when you're going to remote locations and a lot of locations for a very small budget, it's hard. That's hard. But we were so small.
What did your budget end up being?
So the budget is under $70,000.
Wow.
That is post as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the like initial investment was 52,000. So 20 is from me and my family.
Yeah.
And
did you compose this too?
So I co-composed it with an amazing composer. His name's Chris Dudley, who is a member of the Grammy nominated band Under Oath, which I listened to as I was young. And it's like a hard rock band, but he was making his feature film debut with this, and we got together on social media, and it was his first movie. I had scored all my work for like 10 years, 15 years. I was a musician before I made films, so that was an amazing collaboration that I did not expect and did not see coming. But I'm super glad that I did it. I just knew he was going to bring a flavor that I couldn't bring. Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. So to answer your question about post, is it all in? We had a very specific situation to where, you know, I edited the movie for a year and a half, trying to get my teeth into making a movie flow for 2 hours is a lot different than 10 minutes. And I scored the movie with him, so we were both working. And we found an amazing way of working where we would just be writing music that felt like the world and put them in places, and I would edit to the pieces of music. So it's like you would have music beforehand. And we shot the movie with music in our ears, in our headphones, for some really crucial big set pieces to just get a pace and a feel, because we did really long takes, which is another, very risky thing to do on film. Like if you mess up, that was $1,000 you just threw in the trash. But we would do it to the music. So we would know that we were on time, that this has to happen at this beat. And so things like that, I worked with him. He was he was very gracious in people's fees. My collaborators' fees were very gracious in what they were asking for, because they understood that I was laying it all on the line, and they were too. And I promised them, I said, I promise you, you'll have the best thing I've ever made. I promise that. which seems like a hollow thing when you're asking people to work really, really hard for 14 days. But I said it will also be one of the best times of your life. And if it's not,
sorry,
that's on me. Yeah.
Remember.
And so I made the movie and we put out the first teaser trailer. I showed the movie in Los Angeles to some executives and some high level folks just to see what shaked out. And the movie was not, it was finished from what I thought. But it was in an abstract form that people loved it, but they like didn't know what to make of it. We did 2 screenings. They were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I don't exactly know everything that happened, but boy, that world was potent. I took those notes from those 2 screenings and I worked for another 9 months, retooling the edit, putting things in there that weren't in there before, taking things out that didn't need to be there, sharpening everything up. And we put out a teaser trailer, you know, before the festival circuit. And I had some, you know, I was doing all the my sound design myself, the mixing, everything myself, which I had to teach myself over the years. It was just what I had to do out of necessity. And then
what program were you using for your sound design? Was that Logic?
Well, I was doing everything in Premiere, and then I would take it into Logic and then get it right. And you know, finish it off with the really, you know, with a thicker atmosphere. And I had the movie finished, and we also that we had companies like Metropolis Post in New York, through some gracious friendships. They helped us out with the scanning. We did our initial daily scans with Kodak Film Lab Atlanta, but those are just telecine, and we needed to finish the film off when it's actually done to do the finished scans. We did that with Metropolis Post in New York, and then I did the first pass in the color grade. Ended up working with Alan Gordon of Post Pro Gumbo to do the final color at the end. But once again, everyone was very accommodating with the money they were asking for because they understood that this isn't going to be my last movie. It's definitely not. And a relationship sometimes is I mean, a relationship is worth more than money sometimes.
Priceless.
Like our loyalties are in this business is a small community, and it's very good to have friends who are super good at what they do on your side. And so that, and then also I put the teaser out and was reached out to by a couple of guys from Skywalker Sound who asked if I had the final mix done, and I said I do, but if you guys want to take a crack at it, you're welcome to. We worked something out, and they end up doing one of the best 5.1 mixes I've ever heard. We did that all remotely because COVID was on its way to showing up. Yeah, and so it was an incredible process to go through, lengthened out because I didn't have a studio, you know, breathing down my neck with a deadline. It was up to me, and I knew that you only get one shot at having a first movie, so you better prove it. And yeah, the movie's almost 2 hours long, which is probably too long, but in the end, to the people that matter in getting a movie made, getting another movie made, making a good movie is of most importance. The writing, performances, all of that. Everyone did their job from a craft standpoint. But there is an intangible thing as well when, you know, how much did you make this movie for? Under 70 grand. And you made a 2 hour period, you know, kind of like an epic feeling period film on location. That rings a few bells when I'm, you know, trying to get a movie at a bigger scale made. So, yeah.
With the writing and directing, like, you know, did you always know that you wanted to be that multi-hyphenate? You know, that.
I kind of fell into it on accident, to be honest.
Yeah. How did you?
I went into art school as a painter and came out a designer. I got a job at an ad agency, and I almost took some jobs in Madison Avenue, New York, for some big paychecks. But I knew if I did that, I would be trapped. There's hard to turn down, you know, big money, New York City, and I knew in the back of my mind that being a designer probably isn't going to be forever for me. I learned some amazing things, which is the problem solving, working in teams, leadership, pitching, all of that is directing. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I stayed in Indiana and was a designer on the off chance. First of all, I wanted to be around my family. I went my high school sweetheart. I was getting married to her, and she's from Indiana. She's from my hometown. And all these things played a factor. But in the end, the back of my mind, I was like, if I'm not helping my dad in the 100-year-old tradition of the farm, I need to make my life worth it. And working for someone else didn't necessarily sound like that was what I wanted to do forever. So I stuck around and made commercials, did a ton of great work with a ton of great people, and was using all of that money to do short films, which led me to quit my job and make a feature. So, and through that time, it was kind of a gauntlet of learning, you know, how to edit, how to direct, how to talk to actors, how to color grade if I needed to, how to do the sound if I needed to. It was a great training ground to set me up, and I was always making music, always scoring music, whether people heard it or not. I have 300 songs on my computer that people will never hear, but I was making them for me. It was like figuring out who I was, and that music ended up making its way into some of my films. And I felt the power of what I could do early on of sound and picture, just figuring out how they go together is a massive thing. What's your taste? You're a taste maker as a director as well. You're the one that's curating your corner of the universe, you know? So I fell into it on accident, but I'm super happy I did. It turns out that the skill sets that I was creating and that blue collar nature of growing up on a farm, it adds up to a film director. And I didn't know that, but I'm glad it did.
Yeah. I mean, like some of the things we talk about, a couple of things that you've touched on, like film school, like, is it worth the money? And also like when you're trying to create art, you need a day job or a very generous and supportive spouse or partner,
right?
Who understands that you're not going to be necessarily bringing in the cash every month, but you might, you know, hopefully, and translating the day job into finding those nuggets at work that you can translate. You know, like I was right before we started recording, I was editing an article one of our writers wrote about how much baseball coaching correlates to writing, like, you know, some skills and stuff and mindset. And when you mentioned the thing about farming and planting the seeds, I was like, God, you know, you always think about, I always hear people relate sports to the arts, you know, but farming is a whole other mindset. And it's like, I live in a farming community, very big agriculture here. There, you know, farming families who've been there for generations, it's hard for them to get off the farm and go do something else, especially Hollywood, make a movie, that kind of thing. I don't think we have any of that here, but like, and also the family depends on you, you know, like you're the person in the fields or with the cows or with whatever. So like it sounds like your family is super supportive and that you're really fortunate in that. Not that I'm asking you to air dirty laundry of your family.
I actually love talking about that because I feel like if more Hollywood types would open up and stop being so careful and being so calculated, being more genuine, then we would be on a well-suited track to understand each other more, to be honest. Not everything needs to be, you know, calculated, just be authentic. We're starving for authenticity. And so if I can talk about where I came from in a farming, I mean, that's who I am. That's in my DNA. It's going to be in my movies. So why not talk about it? That's what makes me different. Everybody is 100% just themselves. I'm the only one that can make what I make, and you're going to be the only one that can make what you make. You can share the ingredients because they aren't going to have your ingredients. And so, you know, growing up on a farm was massive. And yes, I'm surrounded by like some of the most incredibly supportive people in the world because of that. And the thing is like when I'm writing and I'm, you know, getting my next movie off the ground, when it's planting season, my dad calls, I will come. and drive that tractor. I'll be in the combine in the fall. I don't mind it. Working next to my brother, who's 8 years younger than me. I mean, that's some of the best days of my life are doing that. And there's a certain feeling you get when you look behind you and you see a full field planted or plowed, and you do that last row and you pull out onto the road. It's just as good of a feeling as when your film premieres. It doesn't seem like that from the outside, but there's a certain feeling that people won't understand unless they do it. My company is literally called Endro because of it. And the thing is, the thing is that I'm extremely blessed. I'm not going to act like I'm not. I'm extremely blessed to have people around me because everybody's situation is different. But like I said, I married my high school sweetheart. And when we got married, I said, this is what I think I need to do. We don't have kids yet. You might as well risk it all before you have kids. And it doesn't seem responsible, but it's the most responsible thing we can do to risk it all before that happens. And hope for the best, because I promise I'll give my everything to it. And she gives her everything to it. I mean, it's our movie, not just mine. I might have directed it, but she supported me every second of the day, of every day for 2 years. She had to deal with it. The actors get to go home and go live their lives. She has to watch me edit it. And for a while I edited it in our living room. So, it's like that makes its way into the movie. It's intangible, but it's true. All of that makes its way into the movie, and you watch it, you'll understand. There's a softness that comes from those landscapes. I treat them as if they're cathedrals. It's a cornfield. It's a soybean field. It's a cathedral to me, though. And those faces, they're my faces. It's a home movie. And I think there's an intangible thing that comes out of the screen when I am pouring all of my love into it. And so being as open as I possibly can about, like growing up on a farm, that makes it so extremely diverse backgrounds. If that became the norm and is not politicized, then like extremely diverse backgrounds will feel like I'm bringing this specific thing to the industry. I want to do this. It's not because I check any box. The more open we can all be about where we come from the art is going to be better because we're going to have more choices coming from more voices. A farm kid from Indiana's known for, just a couple of things, and sometimes not the best things because we come from a certain part of the country as far as Hollywood's concerned. But that has nothing to do with my movie, and it has nothing to do with the people that I love and work with. So it's breaking those stigmas, and also just like being an open book as much as you can. That's only gonna, like, to use a farming term, it's only gonna water the field to make sure that it's like got an amazing crop as far as movies go. Because if we have just the same thing being made over and over because there's a formula, and there is a formula, then we're just going to be stuck in an echo chamber, which might not result in people wanting to go to the theaters. So I told everyone that I worked with on the movie, if we make something where the needle lands in the middle, then we made nothing. We either are going to go all the way or we're going to fail, but it's going to be extreme, and alive is better than perfect. So to go back to your question about like you couldn't see dailies and we have a limited amount of film, I would always say alive is better than perfect. I would not put it in the movie if it wasn't good. You can trust me. Like literally go so far that you feel like you might look dumb or fail, because out there on the edge is where authenticity is, and people can feel that. Audiences can feel it. And so that's that's what I build everything around. Everything is built around that. And when I showed my movie not too long ago, I gained a great producer in Noelle Hubble, who we're going to work together on my next couple movies. That's what I gave. She worked at Universal. She worked on some major things, but we get along because she recognized right away, something came out of that screen that spoke to her. But not only that, when we talk just like this, like we're talking right now. I'm talking to, somebody who grew up, born and raised Los Angeles, and we're talking about cornfields. That's rare. Yeah. But it's like it's a give and take. It's I'm happy to give my ingredients up, and she and anyone else I'm working with, they can take from it what they will. And when we were shooting, I would say, if you are feeling drained and you're running out of inspiration, literally bend down and pick up some of the soil that's under your feet and know that like my great grandpa farmed that 100 years ago and now we're making a movie on it. If anything, it's going to make you feel strange, which is going to come out on camera.
And now when I drive around my town and I see a farmer on a tractor, I'm going to imagine, I wonder if he wants to be a director.
Yeah. Hey, a farm background is not the worst background you can have. It's incredible.
Oh, not at all. I mean, some of my best friends are farmers and really great
I mean,
work
you
ethic.
literally spend your days watching the sun go down while you're working the earth.
Right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you probably have also too, when you're sitting on that tractor, a lot of time to think, you know, so your creativity can go, you know, and also find that there's not the noise of the engine, you know, as opposed to the noise of Twitter and everything else, you know?
Right. Which like I won't lie to anyone. My dad and grandpa spent a million times more hours on the tractor than I did. So I can only imagine the movies that they saw in their brains in those countless hours. But you're absolutely right. It teaches you how to be by yourself, how to be reflective, how to entertain yourself. You can't be on your phone when you're doing that. Some crucial life skills are learned right there for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this idea of the labor of love for both your farming and your filmmaking. And I'm sure it definitely, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm sure it definitely shows on screen of how much you put into that. So that's really cool that you did that. You have that mindset and that mentality, because it's really hard for, I've been on many film sets where the director sets the tone for the shoot days. And if they're in a bad mood, everyone is miserable. And if the director is in a great mood, it's going to be the best day of your life. So for you to carry that through for 14 days is a testament to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think it was good to get, you know, some actors who spend every day in New York City. You can't see past the skyscrapers. To get them out in the open air, the first thing they do when they get like out of the car out there is like, can we breathe the air for a second? I love that. Meeting my grandparents, you know, that's amazing. People who will likely go on to be major, you know, movie stars, hugging my grandparents. That's what dreams are made of. You always see like the pictures of like De Niro hugging, you know, Scorsese's mom, all of that. Like that's what we're doing, and that's what it's about. And there's a reason why he is who he is. He didn't hide from where he came from, and he put it all in. And so, finding who you want to model yourself after is not a mistake. Like Paul Thomas Anderson loves California, loves his home, loves his characters, loves people, the good and the bad. Yeah. He didn't hide from where he's from. Look where he is now, one of the best directors to ever live. So it's like that. Let's pull things out rather than accolades. Let's pull those things out and try to bring them to the forefront and see what, you know, the movie industry has to offer other than, you know, just a little trophy. It's not sports. It's not sports. It's an emotional medium. You're painting with time and emotion. That's what you're doing. So if you lead with that, there's a lot of dollars and cents involved, and there's a time for that. But at the core, you got to know why you're raising that money. Where's the money going? Is it coming from a pure place? Because I mean, I said it before, like authenticity is the rarest commodity, really. So
in our last episode, Sadie mentioned a book that she had read about short films and making that connection to people. And Sadie's shooting a short in the fall, and she was speaking to that, you know, like finding that place that you connect with the work. And but I want to hear about, because I want to make sure before we wrap up, I want to make sure you get to talk about the road show.
Sure.
And because that is like super unique, and even just that, like that you managed to keep the theatrical rights and, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like give us some insights into that groundbreaking kind of thing. You don't hear
Yeah.
people putting celluloid in theaters right now.
Right, you definitely don't.
Right.
So yeah, I negotiated to retain the theatrical rights. It's like important, and when it came clear that they weren't going to be able to do it, the distributor wasn't going to be able to put it in theaters. And I understand that. Then I wanted to make sure that I was able to,
Mm-hmm.
and because that's where I think movies belong on the big screen. If they deserve to be there, then put them there. And I think that what we put on the celluloid deserves to be projected on the big screen. That's how I feel. And if I feel that way, then I might not be the only one. I don't think so. I think I'm objective enough. So what we're doing, which is extremely different at an indie level, is we're following the lead of people like Quentin Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Christopher Nolan. That's as good as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. And why not follow their lead and scale that to our scale? We're not putting it in like 30 cinemas at once. We're doing it one at a time and touring the film print around, and we'll expand and see where the interest goes. But the idea is with the Whelm 35 millimeter roadshow, which is set to premiere at the Fine Arts Theater in Beverly Hills on August 13th, is we want to put people in iconic, movie palaces, not a Cineplex, not an AMC. In these theaters, you're wrapped in red velvet, you feel the history. We have a pretty entertaining show that's gonna, a pre-show, take them back in time. We curate, some other things that might be projected on film as well. Some trailers make you feel like you're not in 2021. Sometimes it might feel good to not be in 2021, to kind of disappear, and let's celebrate the history of cinema and also see a brand new movie that is willing to, be a peer of some of the older things. And the thing is, if you've never seen a movie projected on film, it's a very special thing. And it is intangible. It's like once again, it's what we all grew up watching, and it's not for everyone. But it was just where we were willing to put a little extra money and give people a reason to get out of their homes and come see something different. And if the name of the game in indie filmmaking is stand out and be different, what better way to do that than do what only seems reserved for, the auteurs, the major directors? Why not see how we can do that? And if for some reason we're successful, then we can set a precedent for people behind us and leave the door open and show them that it's able to be done. So it premieres the Fine Arts Theater in Beverly Hills on August 13th, nightly showings at 7:30. And we'll go from there. We'll take the success of that and move it to theaters around Los Angeles and hopefully New York and around the country, and give people a chance. And it might be more locations than one at a certain time, but we think it's a creative way of putting the movie in theaters and curating where we put it, and try to support these older theaters that are independently owned, family businesses. Once again, comes back to, I'm a small town, that blue collar atmosphere of people, keeping these doors open, and people who are willing to still have 35 millimeter projectors in their booths. We want them to survive. I don't want them to disappear. Not every movie needs to be projected on it. I understand that's not efficient, but we can't destroy something that's been around for 100 years just because it's not cost effective. Let's keep it around. What if it comes back around?
I'm happy. Albums are back.
Right, albums are back. Yeah. And listen, it's easier to stream a movie in your house, in the comfort of your home. You can pause it when you want. You can go to the bathroom when you want. You can eat when you want. You can talk during it. You can do whatever. You can go to the theater and people can do all of those things and interrupt you. That's the risk you run. But there's something about everyone being in the same room, 100 people watching a dream through a window in front of them. And when it's projected on film, it just feels that much more inclusive, and you're all in there together. Like, I don't know, it just makes it different. It feels different. And I'm willing to put sign my name next to that experience. and see what people get out of it. Because if it gives you just a little bit of excitement and lets you escape your life for that amount of time, then I did my job. That's what you're there to do.
That's awesome. All I can imagine, Skyler, is you playing piano to some like silent films beforehand to do the full experience.
Hey, I'm taking that. I'm noting it now.
Yeah,
we're going to do that somewhere down the line.
At your home theater.
Yeah.
With like all the cars around you and
maybe, yeah, it would be, you know, we'll go all out. We'll say, why don't you dress like it's the 30s? Everyone, we're going to be in a vaudevillian theater. Yeah. Everybody show up.
It's a great idea.
Have fun.
Yeah,
really fun. We're here to have fun. Life's too hard to not be having fun and have a good time. Really. Mm-hmm. So if I can bring a movie that brings a certain corner of the earth that doesn't get put on celluloid very often and show them and they're touched by the story, great. If they have a good time at the theater, great. If they don't, I'm sorry. It's not Burger King though. You know, I made what I loved and I hope you love it too, but can't be upset when someone doesn't agree. It's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. And you know, art is subjective. I mean, you know, some people love certain things and don't love others. Like I love historical pieces, and so I'm like fascinated by this, but I certainly also watch other things too, like not just that. And so we're really, really excited. Congratulations on your bravery, on the release, on the roadshow, all of that. And we'll link to everything we can link to in the description. So people can find it and go. And all of our listeners, Reckless Creative listeners, when you show up at the roadshow in these fancy, fabulous theaters, make sure you let them know this is where you heard about it and that you are a true fellow Reckless Creative.
That's right. August 13th at the Fine Arts Theater in Beverly Hills. Doors open at 6, starts at 7:30. I'll be at every showing that week. Everybody gets a film strip from the movie, actual celluloid, and cool. you get a miniature poster. We're going all out.
That's
As awesome. If you're at a Night at the Opera situation, please come up to me and say hi. If you're in Los Angeles, I encourage you to come on the 13th because that'll be the premiere of it. It'll feel a little bit more prestigious.
Also, when you get your film strip and your little thing, take a picture of it, and if you're on Twitter, tweet it out and tag us.
Yeah,
and then we'll retweet it, and we want to make sure he gets some good audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited for you.
Me too. Stay reckless.
Yeah,
I'll try.
Reckless Creatives is a Pipeline Artist original podcast. Like, subscribe, and follow us on social media at Pipeline Artists. And find more info at pipelineartists.com/listen. Until next time, stay reckless.